Hello everyone, thanks for joining me for the third and final demonstration of the Mastering course module. Here we're going to be talking specifically about restoration. How can we take an old or damaged recording and improve it? Let's take a look. Since today's focus is audio restoration, I already went ahead and found an old recording that had a lot of sonic anomalies and issues with it that's really going to pose a few challenges for us as far as restoring this audio goes. So let's just start out by taking a listen to the first part of this song, and then we'll make some observations about it. Okay, so you can tell right off the bat that there's some problem areas with this audio. Before we go about actually fixing any of these issues, let's talk about the types of distortion that we might run into. In regards to a restoration project, probably the most common distortion that we're going to find is that caused by deterioration. Some of these recordings were made on very old formats such as vinyl or cassette tapes, and many of these things have actually begun to deteriorate over the years. So what we have to do is digitize that audio so we can put it inside a digital audio workstation and manipulate it and see if we can perform the restoration process that way. Another type of distortion that we're going to be concerned with is background noise. Sometimes, especially with older recordings, you can run into a lot of background noise that's heard in the recording studio but not being made by the musicians themselves. So we have to be able to identify these unwanted sounds and then figure out a way to reduce or eliminate them. The final type of distortion that I wanted to talk about is pops and clicks. These are little sonic anomalies that generally don't last more than a split second, but can potentially disrupt the listening experience and can be very distracting. They can also be very difficult to remove. So in regards to the song that we're working with here, my first course of action is going to be to make some EQ changes. So I'm going to switch to the instrument or rack window, and then select the Spectrum EQ window here. And then I'm going to listen to the song and just manipulate some of these EQ settings to see if I can find out where the problems lie. One important thing to remember while you're performing these kinds of procedures is to not be afraid to adjust the parameters by big amounts. Any changes that you make can always be returned to their original place, so don't feel like you're required to only make subtle adjustments. Sometimes, especially in restoration projects, you're going to have to make some larger adjustments in order to accomplish your goals. So let's take a listen and make some adjustments here to our EQ. What I'm trying to do is find these problem frequencies, the fuzziness that you hear, and eliminate it. So I'm looking for that fuzzy problem. It sounds like it's in this high-pitched area. So I'm just going to start to remove some of it. And there already you can hear that fuzzy static quality is greatly reduced.
Forgive me, please forgive me. I didn't mean to make you.
Now the restoration project is fairly subjective. You have to be careful while you're removing some of these problem frequencies.
Right. I love you and I need you. Do anything but don't say goodbye. Let bygones just be bygones. We all make mistakes now and then. I'm sorry, forgive me, my dear.
Starting to sound a lot better. And I haven't lost too much of the high frequency sound. But because we have reduced some of these frequency ranges, I'm going to go ahead and perform a few other mastering techniques like compression and limiting just to boost everything back up to a more optimal level. So I'm going to close my Spectrum EQ window, make sure that I'm looking at the appropriate audio track, which I am, and then I'm going to insert the compressor and limiting effects here. So now again, let's start to make some changes with the compressor and see if we can improve things even further. Cool. So these changes might seem very subtle, but we have a significant amount of gain reduction, which is giving us a little less dynamic range, but keeping the volume a little more consistent throughout this entire song. Now let's try to maximize this audio with our limiter, just to boost the volume a bit. I also want to make sure on my master VU meter that I'm not peaking there. So let's just go to the mix window and make sure.
Forgive me, please forgive me. I didn't mean to make you cry. I love you.
Alright, I think we've made some great changes and really restored this damaged piece of audio. But what I'm going to do now is create a new audio track and then duplicate the song onto that track without the effects, so I can easily go back and forth and decide which one sounds better. So let's just do a little comparison between the original recording and then my restored version. First we'll listen to the original. Okay, and now let's listen to my newly restored version. Sounds a lot better. So with some relatively small adjustments to EQ and some additional mastering procedures such as compression and limiting, we've really restored this audio to a much better quality. At this point, we've taken a project through all the phases of music production, recording, mixing, and mastering, and learned a lot of great techniques along the way. I want to thank you so much for joining me in this coursework and wish you the best in your music production careers. See you next time.